Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Today is the 4th, which means it is the day where I make some of my own scrapbooking supplies from supplies I already have on hand, add it to a scrapbooking kit I put together a couple of days ago, and move on from there. So let's dive into the makes that I've got going on this time around, and I've got 3 of them for you, so let's check them out. So first of all, I should explain that all of these are based on the Tracy Reed Moonlit collection, and the first one I'm starting with is this piece of pattern paper. If you don't know about how we take our inspiration and turn it into kits and products, I suggest you go back and watch my kit build video for this month, which I will link you up here and down below. All right, so I collected this section of colored cardstock so that I could add this to my kit, and specifically so that I could create this piece of pattern paper in full 12 by 12 size. Now, I do own a whole bunch of Tracy Reed products that I print out at home, but I am limited by an 8.5 by 11 printer, and I wanted this one in 12 by 12. So what I did is I went to my Cricut and I found just a simple banner shape, and I stretched that banner shape to make these waves of color that I can use for my shooting star. Now, her pattern had some nice curvy edges to it, so I wanted to reproduce that. Now, I could have cut it with scissors, but I know that my own hand cutting isn't quite as smooth as getting the digital cuts done, so I did do this on my Cricut, and I just stretched those banners as long as I needed each color to be in order to reach that shooting star. And what's nice about the Cricut is that you can mock it up all on the screen and kind of know where everything's going to land. And I used it to cut my star, so I was going to use it for that anyway. Why not use it for the rest of it as well? So now I'm going to just spread out my colors of strips so that they are wider on the left-hand side and narrower on the right-hand side. And I will end up trimming off all the excess that's hidden under that star to reduce the bulk. And I will cut off the extra banner ends because that was not what I wanted for this. But because that banner shape had the curvy edges that I wanted, that's why I used the banner. Plus, when I cut off the excess, I will have those little bits to use on something. I don't know what, but I will put it to use on something, and that will be an interesting little challenge in itself. So, as I glue everything down, I do use some weights there to kind of keep everything adhered down. I make myself a little mark on the unglued end, which I can just kind of untuck from underneath that star. I did just glue 2 edges of the star down in order to hold that in place while I did the rest of this. And then getting these edges all glued in place to get it to act as one unit once again, and then a little more glue, and that will finish up this project. So this one was definitely easy to do, and you don't need to use the digital tools that I used if you don't want to or don't have them. You could totally do this by hand. And here I'm showing you those little leftover bits, which I will do something with. But using all of these bold colors set against black really is an eye-catching design, and I thank Tracy Reed for the idea, and I'm glad that I could make it in 12 by 12 work for me. And here is a little bit of a close-up of that. And then we can go ahead and move on to the second project, which is also another easy one as long as you have a couple of supplies on hand. And it is inspired by these little fireflies on the Tracy Reed products. And they were inspiring partially because I don't have any fireflies. What I do have is some bees. Oh, here's my kitty, Jamie. He's not joined me in quite a while on camera, so if you'll pardon his rear end, I will show you how I'm turning these bees into fireflies. And I'm going to cut out white pattern paper and also vellum with my little mini die cutter here. Here I'm cutting the vellum, and what's nice about the little mini die cutter is if you line up your stuff right on the very edge, and I didn't quite get to the very edge there, but if you do that on the very edge, you can save yourself a lot of time with, as opposed to a bigger die cutter, you don't have to crank as much, and if you do it right on the end, it's almost as fast as using a punch. I did double up my white paper because it was super thin paper, like copy weight paper, and I made the process even faster that way, and they popped apart nice and easily once I had them out of the die cut machine. I've put them on a row of gray cardstock, both to catch over inking and also to help them show up better on camera. But I'm just going to color up these little guys very simply, a little black circle on their head, and then using a white marker, a little yellow circle on their abdomens, and I've got myself some little fireflies. Now, if you're using water-based markers on vellum, it will take longer to dry, so don't smudge those. That's also a good reason for cardstock in the background, because you can just kind of pick up the whole cardstock and set it aside to completely dry. Or you could use Copic markers, other alcohol markers, if you have those on hand, because those will dry faster. So here are my little fireflies, and I think they are adorable, and I was very happy to be inspired to make those. All right, let's move on to this third project, which is making this glittery alpha out of a digital product. I will just walk you through a small part of this. I do have a much longer tutorial, more details on how to do this, but I do this on my Cricut. Well, actually, I do use Adobe Photoshop, but I'm going to show you how to do it entirely on the Cricut in case you don't have a good photo editing software. This is a little tedious in the beginning, which is the process of opening each individual file within Cricut. Now, you're technically not opening them, you're uploading them, and hopefully you already know how to do that in your Cricut or Silhouette. It's a very similar process if you have a Silhouette. But what you're going to want to do is open up every single individual letter and go through this process of converting it to a print and cut file, which again, I've got a much longer tutorial, more details on how to do this. So I've got one of them opened. I'm going to go ahead and open up the next one. It goes a little bit faster at this point because you notice I had to navigate through all of the files to find them. But once you've got one of them open, it'll just open right up to the whole collection of files. So the process from there on out gets a little bit faster. So I will walk you through this just one more time. I'm going to open up the next file in my series, and here it pops in. And I can just quickly hit the continue buttons. As long as you choose that print and cut feature, you can just scroll through. You don't have to wait for it to think and load. You can just hit the next button and get on with working with your file. So I'm going to go ahead and group these together. Imagine you have the entire alphabet doing this, and I'm going to resize them down so that the total height and width of these products will fit on an 8.5 by 11 paper. And in fact, they need to be slightly smaller than that because the print and cut feature needs a bit of a border in order to read in the machine. So get those scaled down to the right size, and you'll get a little warning if it's not the right size, and you can learn from my other video on how to do that. Turn them into a group using the group feature, attach them together using the attach feature, make sure that indeed they are a print and cut file, and then you can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is to hit the make button. And once you get over here, you can see what they will look like on that printout that then the machine can read to cut. You will send this to your printer. Normally, I don't use a bleed feature when printing these, and this will make more sense if you watch my previous video on print and cut files. But this time I did use the bleed feature because they're small individual icons. It worked very well this way. And you can see I got these gorgeous alphabets. And as long as you save that file, you can reprint and cut these as many times as you like and get those extra vowels if you run out. And it's a great way to do your own alphabet. All right, I will leave you with the recap photos of the projects that we worked on today. And I know a couple of these required a little bit of techiness, but if you own an electronic die cutter, I highly recommend you go ahead and learn some of these steps because it will open up a whole new world of possibilities for your crafting, including never running out of E's or I's or O's again. All right, that brings us to the end of this video. I will probably be taking a very slight break for a couple of weeks because I do have a lot of travel plans, but I will be back soon with more videos. And until then, have an artful day.